Is it time to escape the West? Russia, as of yesterday, just signed a law that simplifies and expedites the process for Western refugees and asylum seekers to relocate to Russia. Of course, the irony of this is that history is repeating, but in the inverse, where we saw political asylum seekers of the USSR escaping to the West in the 80s and 90s and even prior to that. Like communism previously in the USSR, they attempted to impede or outright ban travel to the safe haven Western countries. Ironically, again, the West is now doing this today and has banned direct travel to Russia. Communist and managerialist regimes, given their bloat-driven nature, will always seek to criminalise those who seek common sense policies that would mitigate bureaucratic overreach or increased violence in society, while inversely championing and supporting actual crime. Why is this the case? Simply put, as the paradox of business goes, one who develops a solution and then commercialises it does not wish to see the problem entirely eradicated by their solution, as it would destroy the fundamental reason for their commercial, or in this case, socio-political existence. Thus, they turn what could be a cure into a mere therapeutic, or simply antagonise the problem or social affliction further, stoking the fires of chaos as that directly promotes the relevancy of their solution. In the case of governments, especially that of tyrannical and illegitimate regimes, they actively want criminality, substance abuse, violence, sectarian divisions, and general chaos because it promotes the solution that they are selling to the populace. The solution is thus, quote, "We are the benevolent tyrant that you surrender your freedoms and rights to. In the process become simple dependents upon our system, and in return we keep all of these clearly malevolent tyrants who would steal your freedom and rights at bay," unquote. This is a political paradox as old as time itself. Naturally, with the ongoing competency crisis, economic black hole, and the nascent stages of this global population collapse in developed nations, both East and West alike, then what we are seeing in terms of this specific crackdown on dissident elements in the West, in all demographics of Western society, arguably, is an increasingly cosmopolitan, out of touch, brittle, and politically fragile managerialist regime that is attempting to delay the collapse of this house of cards. From what I have read, this is extremely reminiscent of the early stages of the collapse of the USSR, with the managerialist regime emphatically dictating that the population, of whatever creed or colour, deny the evidence of their eyes. Of course, that is extremely Orwellian. That was the final and most essential commandment of the party. I must stress that this is not about any specific issue, but is the general flavour of the zeitgeist, that this supposed democratic system is merely a thin veneer that is altogether concealing a rich, powerful, and evidently psychopathic oligarchy that holds a set of radical agendas that are diametrically oppositional to the population's interests. I must also stress that this system also has no ideological basis, at least not on the facade of it. Of course, when you go to the inner sanctum of power, there certainly is an ideological framework, which is religious in nature. It is formless in that regard, this managerialist regime. It is not even communistic in the traditional sense, but can only be described accurately as managerialist. It is soulless and seeks to make of us all shells of people, because that is how it can more easily control and manipulate us. This is the reason for the exalting of ugliness within our society, the outward symptoms of the social contagion that emanates from the managerialist edifice. And we see it in modern art, popular music, Bauhaus and brutalist architecture, and the strange emergence of stupefying norms. This is the banality of evil, what it seeks to clearly spread, like a contagion, to the host population it latches onto, making them as banal as the managerialist architect. Accordingly, this is why freedom of speech and expression is now on the chopping block, for as long as people may express opinions that counter the values that the managerialist establishment holds to, then such counter-ideas may equally spread as pathogenic memes and threaten their system of power. Given the unnerving and mostly visibly non-ideological basis of managerialism and its values, it becomes almost instinctual to oppose it. Hence, this instinct must be outlawed as blasphemy against the state to protect the fragile integrity of the entire edifice of this political house of cards. Lastly, the managerialist regime puts forth this newly mandated state religion of values, not because they inherently support these said values, but due to the stupefying and unnerving nature of the said values and their structural components, that they are corrosive to the old order, which stands in the way of the managerialist bulwark taking total and unrivaled control of the system. Holding to these unnatural and unnerving values of the managerialist regime acts as a political barometer of loyalty, and also ensures that the wheat may be separated from the chaff. In other words, those who threaten the ideological regime are the ones who will be totally repulsed by the values and cannot check their brain at the door long enough to even hide that they do not believe in the said shared values of this new state religion of equality. Bear in mind as well the old adage that those who can make you believe absurdities can also make you commit atrocities. Again, if you lose all sense of moral or ethical right or wrong, then you become a mere human resource, a automaton for the state, a fanatic, a self-righteous fanatic. And that is exactly what cults, governments, or the state are looking for. It's what this managerialist elite is also looking for. So it ensures that the threats to the managerialist system are destroyed under the guise of humanitarianism. And it is also why fierce debates and pilot schemes raged from 2020 to 2022 to require some form of university education as a primary criterion for entrance into law enforcement training. Political conformity was what was sought, and it had nothing to do with enhancing public safety. Again, it only was there to enhance the safety of the managerialist class, of the managerialist establishment. They must ensure political conformity to these sets of unnatural values, unnatural political ideas, because if you have loyalty to that, then they know you're no threat to them. Even if you feign loyalty to it, the values are so unnerving to the majority of people, they can at least weed out, eliminate from society that element which are the most vocal, are the most animated, are the most instinctual in their resistance to the managerialist elite. Of course, this is why the prisons have been emptied very recently in the UK. It's to make way for this new settling, this new incarceration rather, of this class of people that instinctually are against these absolutely unnerving, stupefying values of the managerialist class. What the managerialist regime seeks is what all power seeks, but rarely pursues in its totality. The total centralization of all power into perpetuity, and for the indispensability of their political positions to remain without let or hindrance from public critique or resistance. Like every hubristic political elite throughout history, fail they will, and spectacularly so. Far more capable despots and power brokers throughout history have attempted to realise this grandiose dream, and they have all failed miserably. Unfortunately, it is the ordinary man and woman who must suffer the consequences of these political vanity projects, born out of the political elite's own feeble insecurities and insatiable lust for power.